Right, so I think we're ready to start. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Zoe, Events Director at Brand Finance UK. Thank you very much for joining us today for our Brand Finance Nigeria Forum. Just a quick note on housekeeping. The format of the 2-hour-long webinar today will follow two presentations from Brand Finance, followed by presentations by guest speakers with a discussion as well. You can submit any questions to our presenters through the Q&A facility, and we will be sharing a recording of the webinar after the session as well. And now I'm very pleased to hand over to Tunde Odomero to introduce today's event. Thanks, Tunde.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Good morning, everyone, to the second year running of the Brand Finance Nigerian Forum. I'd like to thank everyone that's taking time out of their busy schedule to join us. I'd especially like to thank the panel as well. And I'd also like to congratulate the brands that did incredibly well in these studies of ours. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll hand over to Mike, who is our Chief Commercial Officer. He's going to talk about the role of sustainability in building trust. So over to you, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tunde. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and really looking forward to today's session. So yeah, as Tunde said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of sustainability in rebuilding trust. This is a presentation that I originally gave in Davos in January this year, where trust and sustainability were two of the really big themes that were being discussed at Davos. And this was an event where we were launching the Brand Finance Global 500. So today you're going to be hearing about the Nigeria ranking, but we publish many rankings and league tables of brand value around the world. The Global 500 is our sort of centerpiece ranking, and we launch that at Davos every year, which is why I was there and why we were talking about trust and sustainability at that time. So just to give you a bit of context. For those of you who don't or are less familiar with brand finance, just a quick overview. We work with brand owners and their professional advisors all over the world, answering big questions that they have around brand value, brand performance, and brand direction. More specifically, we support organizations with value-based brand management, so understanding how their brands are performing and how their brands are delivering business value. We look at analytics, so things like sponsorship analysis, for example, looking at the ROI of marketing investment and understanding what is the ROI, and looking forward, how can we improve that ROI and improve the effectiveness of our marketing investments. We inform brand strategy, so using financial modeling, data and analytics to set strategic directions and help to address difficult questions within an organization and help understand which direction a brand might take and which of those strategic directions might create the most value for the business. And then lastly, we get involved in M&A, shareholder negotiations and disputes to look at what the brand is adding in any particular transaction, or what might be owed between two parties in a negotiation. We're based all over the world, and we also play an important role in setting the global standards around brand measurement, particularly through our role with the International Standards Organization. The many sort of valuations that we conduct each year, we have over 6,000 brands in our database. It's all underpinned by significant market research, so we have a very data-driven approach. Our Global Brand Equity Monitor is a study that we conduct every year with the general public in over 40 countries, over 30 sectors, and we've been doing that now for 8 years, and we have a significant database on brands all around the world. So looking at the Global 500, and because I'll introduce you to Ollie in after my presentation, who will go more into the details for Nigeria. But the Global 500, the total value this year reached its peak highest ever value of $8.6 trillion. On average, the brand assets, those brands that we're valuing, represent almost 23%, so almost a quarter of the total value of the businesses that they are part of. So clearly, brands are very important business assets that need to be managed very carefully over time, just as carefully as you would manage physical assets, or just as carefully as you'd think about managing your other intangible assets like your workforce. And this is some analysis that we do with Legal & General, the global insurance company and asset manager. So we've launched an ETF with Legal & General, and this is their analysis, not ours. They've demonstrated that the top 100 global brands in our Global 500 table over 2016 to 2024 have delivered 24% higher shareholder yield, 18% higher return on equity, and 18% higher operating margin than their mega cap peers in the MSCI World Index. So this is really why we're here, and why you're here, why Brand Finance is here, is because we're here to help organizations manage brands and drive superior business results. This is the top 10 from our Global 500. So Apple jumped to #1 this year. Microsoft also leapfrogged into second place, with all of those sort of tailwinds that they're experiencing from their investments in AI. Deutsche Telekom was a new entrant this year. You think of telecoms perhaps as being a more commoditized category these days, but Deutsche Telekom are doing some fascinating things in terms of building the brand more emotionally, and defending social causes, and getting really interesting ways of activating and building an emotional brand. The top 5 technology brands are worth, in aggregate, $1.6 trillion. And that represents 19% of the total value of the 500. So what we're seeing is this huge concentration of power and wealth in these big technology companies. And that was, a significant part of the backdrop of Davos this year, where we were looking at sustainability and trust, but particularly also AI. And the tensions that were being discussed at Davos in terms of the role of AI, the impact on job security and the future world of work that we were discussing at Davos, are also themes that we can start to see play out a little bit in our own data set. So looking at the Global 500 again, we can see big gains in technology-driven sectors like internet, electronics, semiconductors. We've got some big winners in terms of individual brands, Microsoft and Nvidia. And then we can start to see in some of those consumer, retail, high street sectors, some of those headwinds that consumers around the world have been experiencing in terms of the cost of living, with declines in those kind of sectors. So, in a world where, these sort of tensions could potentially get more and more, bigger in the future, it's the organizations and brands that can build trust and be trusted that are likely to be the winners. And so, digging into trust a little bit more, we can see that trust is a really fundamental underpinning of brand value. Got a couple of examples for you here. Tesla dropped out of the top 10 of our Global 500 ranking this year. Quite a significant fall in value, and even more significant, I'd say, drop in rank to 18 from 9th. And actually, when you look at the underlying data that sits underneath that brand valuation, we can see that their trust is dropping off. Global average trust score going down from 7.3 to 6.9. That's quite a significant drop. When you think about, people's perceptions tend to move quite slowly. And on the right-hand side, you can see just a small select number of examples of the mood music around Tesla becoming more negative, particularly, driven by some of kind of their CEO's slightly erratic behavior at times. And so, you can see how that trust is undermining Tesla's value. And on the flip side, with Microsoft, a real winner this year, as I was saying, jumped from third to second place, huge increase in brand value. And trust is a really strong underpinning for the Microsoft brand. So our analysis, driver analysis, shows that trust is the #1 driver of consideration in technology. And Microsoft scores incredibly well on trust, second globally in terms of global tech brands in terms of its trust. And on the right hand side here, the slide, you can just, again, a few examples of how they're doing that. They're really taking a strong and ethical stance on AI, really sort of positive moves and significant initiatives around digital online ethics. And all of that really stems from their CEO, Satya Nadella, who really sort of puts trust at the heart of everything that Microsoft does. We can also see, so those are a couple of specific brand examples, but looking across our whole data set from the Global Brand Equity Monitor, we can see that there is this relationship between trust and consideration of brands. Now, this is a pretty strong relationship here in the data, and although we can't necessarily say that correlation is exactly the same as causation, there is clearly a strong relationship here between the trust that people have in brands and their willingness to consider those brands to buy and use. So why is trust such a strong foundation for brand value and business value? Well, it all really stems from, if we think about how brands create value in the first place, the first thing is that they create utility value for customers. So through the familiarity with the brand, they help to simplify choice and they help to speed up decision making. And we all hate wasting time and losing time on things. So it just makes our choice easier. It also reduces perceived risk. We hate that we feel the pain of loss twice as much as we feel the upside of gain. And so we're really wired as human beings to avoid risk, and trusted brands really tap into that. And then ultimately, the most powerful brands have an emotional connection as well, and they really draw you in to their world and drive appeal and affinity. Delivering that value to customers influences their perceptions. Ultimately, it drives consideration, as we've seen, which leads to repeat purchase, which drives revenue. It leads to our willingness to pay a higher price premium, which delivers profit margin, and it delivers more sustained and reliable earnings over time, which lowers risk. And all of these things ultimately create value, brand value and business value. So if we unpack trust a little bit more, thinking about, in terms of this whole value chain, I think there are 3 ways to think about trust within your own organizations. The first is what I was really talking about there. The core is around reducing perceived risk. It won't let me down. This is about competence, quality, delivery. But also, a brand that's on my side. It's this idea of benevolence, a brand that will look after me if things go wrong. So from a US, picking some US brands, for example, Zappos or Southwestern Airlines, brands that are really known for being on the customer side, delivering excellent customer service. And then in terms of emotional benefits, there's the strongest brands also deliver on integrity. So, does the right thing by people and planet. If we can deliver all of these things, then we'll have that will deliver the strongest brands. So we've talked about trust. Now let's talk a little bit about integrity, doing the right thing, and the link between trust and sustainability. So again, coming back to our Global Brand Equity Monitor data, here we've looked at the relationship between trust. On the left-hand side, the charts is about the relationship between trust and perceptions that a brand is doing what it can to reduce the negative effect of its operations. The chart on the right is the relationship between trust and brands that support causes that I care about. So again, we can see emerging in the data that there is a relationship between, sustainability and social CSR, ESG kind of activities and trust. And when we do a more a regression-based or statistical drivers analysis, and this is from apparel, automotive, and consumer electronics, this analysis, we can see value for money being a key driver of consideration in these categories, as we were talking about earlier. But the combination of reducing effects of its operations and sustainable causes is a really significant driver of consideration for consumers these days, and consumers are starting to be willing to prioritize sustainability over other drivers. And I think it's important to note that it's just as important in business to business as well. So on the right hand side, we've looked at drivers of reputation here. Now, this is a study that we run with IT business transformation decision makers, so IT services. Governance, social and environmental drivers are really significant drivers of reputation. Not quite as high as in terms of drivers of consideration, but still, nevertheless, significant in terms of driving reputation and consideration in B2B as well as in B2C. So, if sustainability is becoming more important to customers and consumers, to what extent should businesses be trying to communicate about the investments that they're making in sustainability? Well, it hasn't been clear cut up to now. We've seen numerous examples of brands being called out for greenwashing. Nike, H&M, lots of examples of this. I've just selected 4 from many that we could have shown you. And so what that's led to is more and more organizations prefer to green hush. So keeping, rather than saying something and being, criticized for it, just staying quiet. The issue with green hushing is how if nobody communicates and no one says anything, how can we move the agenda forward on sustainability in the direction that we all need it to go as a race and as a planet? How do we build trust without some form of communication? We've seen even the most valuable brands struggling with this a little bit. Apple is one of the best brand builders and managers companies in the world. At first glance, they seem to be doing all the right things, setting bold targets for carbon neutrality, launching its first completely carbon neutral product in the Apple Watch. But even Apple was called out on this with activists and others noting that really the only way that they'd created that carbon neutrality in the watch was through some somewhat dubious carbon credit schemes that were sort of considered not really kind of delivering on the carbon neutrality claim that Apple was suggesting. So it's confusing, and it's really not on consumers to try and work this out. It's for organizations to make sure that they're kind of communicating the right thing. And what I'm going to talk about in a moment is some new regulation that's coming through that is actually going to make it much easier for consumers and everyone really to assess the performance, how brands are doing in these areas. We've also seen significant, there's been issues in the investor world as well. So for a number of years, the ESG wave has been growing with particularly strong support from people like Larry Fink at BlackRock and Vanguard. And there's been this whole new industry of ESG investment growing up, but in some ways a bit of a wild west with lots of different ways of measuring things and lack of transparency in terms of that measurement. And that's actually unfortunately led to a bit of a pushback as well in the investor world, with BlackRock making layoffs in the ESG space. Larry Fink coming out saying he's kind of ashamed that ESG has become such a politicized topic. And again, the new non-financial reporting regulation that's going to be coming through It's going to be making it much easier for the performance of different organizations to be assessed properly. So let me I'm about to close. Let me just briefly touch on these non-financial reporting regulations. So up until now, there's been a whole host of different disconnected regulations coming up around climate, water, nature, and biodiversity. Those are the ones on the left-hand side, and they've all been sort of disconnected. And what we're going to see coming through soon and in the future, and these are initiatives that are driven by the EU in particular, but and also other international bodies like the IFRS, is a consolidated single framework where all of these other regulatory frameworks are being folded into one comprehensive framework, which will be much more rigorous, more comparable, and more transparent. And all report and you know, companies of a certain size will be obligated to report in line with these regulations. So what's that going to mean for brands? Well, first of all, it's going to be increasingly difficult to greenwash because the data will be reported and the data will be out there. And what that means is that organizations are also, I think, going to be forced into action from inaction, because how they're doing, how they will be out there for all to see. And then ultimately that should mean that the case for greenwashing disappears. Those who are doing well, you know, can report and communicate that with much greater confidence, knowing that they've got the data and the accepted frameworks and ways of measuring things through the regulation. That means that they can then substantiate and support their claims and be less at risk of greenwashing. So I hope that's you know, positive news, and that will allow brands to really start to build brand leadership in the sustainability space. And I'm already starting to see examples of brands that are really embedding sustainability at the core of their brand platforms and strategies. And I think we're only going to see that increase in the future. So I hope that was, I hope you found that interesting. I'm now going to hand over to Oliver Schmitz, our Managing Director of Brand Finance Africa, who's going to take you through the results from Nigeria specifically. Over to you, Ollie.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for your presentation, and friends and colleagues. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I'm Ollie Schmitz. I'm the Managing Director for Brand Finance Africa. I see some familiar names. Wonderful to see you, and to all the new names as well. Welcome to our event today. Now, Mark, he started his presentation talking about Davos. I'd like to start my presentation talking about my shirt. I feel like I need to explain. So I wanted to wear my best shirt today, and my wife nearly died when she saw that this is what I came up with. So I'll tell you the same thing that I explained to her. So in 2013, I was living in a village in Botswana, and my friend Eunice, she went back home to Zambia, and she bought this material, which she gave to me as a present. And then I took the material to a friend of mine. His name was Felix. He was a tailor from Zimbabwe, and he made me the shirt. I'll have to admit it's possibly not the most fashionable shirt. It's not the best fit. It doesn't even actually have proper sleeves. It's 11 years old. But it's my best shirt because it has a story, and every story matters. It's my best shirt because it was made by an African for an African in Africa. And I thought that's sort of the theme that we've got going today, because that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the stories of some of Nigeria's strongest and most valuable brands and how they're thriving despite turbulent times. And so we look forward to acknowledging some of those brands. And we're here to highlight some key trends that we see. And then we also look forward to hearing from our panelists later this morning. So just to start the presentation, possibly let me talk a little bit about brand strength first of all. So to calculate brand value. To calculate brand value, we use a primary approach called the royalty relief methodology. It assumes that if you didn't own your brand, what would you have to pay a third party to license theirs? So what would you pay to license a brand from a third party? And so this approach, it's based on commercial reality. Now, there are essentially 4 components that we account for in our valuation. The first one is brand strength, and we'll talk a little bit more about this shortly. The second is brand impact, which is the role of brand in a specific industry. The third is brand risk. Now, this brand risk measure, we use it to discount the future value of a brand's earnings to today's value. Now, in general, Africa has a significantly higher risk than more developed markets. And as an example, for instance, brands in the UK, we see they have risk rates of around 8% versus rates in Nigeria of around 18%. So that's more than double. The risk in Nigeria is more than double the risk in the UK. So if in the UK you had 100 million naira, in 5 years' time it would be worth 68 million naira. That same 100 million naira in Nigeria, in 5 years' time, it would be worth 47 million. That's how significant the risk is. We lose 30% of value just because of the risk of the place in which we operate, Nigeria and broader Africa. So that's massive. And then that fourth component is the financial outlook, which is the historic and the forecast financial performance of the brand. And so those 4 elements combined help us to determine brand value. Now, today we'll recognize 2 categories. The first will be brand strength, and then the second will be the most valuable brands. Now, it's important to understand that brand strength is only one component of brand value. Some brands, they want to be the strongest, but that doesn't mean that automatically they will be the most valuable, and vice versa. For instance, if I asked you which of these 3 brands on your screen is the strongest, Toyota, Ferrari, or Mercedes-Benz, what would you say? Well, the results on which is the strongest brand, we see that Ferrari is the strongest brand with 90 points out of 100, followed quite closely by Toyota and then Mercedes-Benz coming third. Now, you may think that Toyota and Mercedes, their ranks are strange, but in reality, where Toyota lacks in overall appeal when compared to Mercedes, it's also sold 3 times more cars in 2023, which gives it power. And so Toyota is a stronger brand when you compare it to Mercedes. But now if I had to ask you, out of these 3 brands, which is the most valuable, what would you say? Well, the answer, Mercedes-Benz. So the Mercedes-Benz brand is worth 59 billion US, followed by Toyota and then Ferrari. And so why is Mercedes only the 3rd strongest brand, but the most valuable brand? Well, it's because it has that balance of appeal, that price premium combined with good sales volumes, and that's what makes it the most valuable out of those 3 brands. But so why do strong brands matter then? Well, when valuing a brand, we consider its overall impact on all internal and external stakeholders. For example, our research, it allows us to explain customer consideration for a brand. For every 1 point increase in consideration, we can demonstrate the impact on market share and sales. So an increase in consideration, it leads to a higher brand value and a higher share price. We can prove the impact of strong brands on finance costs, on share price growth, and other business dimensions too. And so brand valuation, it's not just limited to proving the success of marketing alone. Rather, it should be a measure of overall business function, which is why we see brand value and measures of brand equity being included in many executive scorecards as best practice. How do we calculate that brand strength? Well, we use quantitative research and a balanced scorecard approach, and then we assess the strength of the brand by calculating a score out of 100 in the context of its sector. So we consider how the brand is being invested in when it comes to price and promotion, place, people, and product. We also consider brand equity. So this is essentially, it looks at the behavioral elements of a brand, and we take into account perceptions of customers as well as other stakeholders, including workforce and analysts. And then we also include overall brand performance measures. So the actual performance of the business versus competitors. And so those combined give us a brand strength score out of 100. So having given you the brief 2-minute explanation of brand strength and why strong brands are important, colleagues, we are very proud to announce the top 10 strongest Nigerian brands for 2024. In 10th place, we have Zenith Bank. So although the brand strength score improved by 1.4 points from 77.9 to 79.3 points, Zenith, it actually drops from 4th place in last year's ranking to 10th. So from the outset, friends, this will give you an idea that there are some big changes this year. In 9th place, with a brand strength score of 79.6, we have UBA, United Bank for Africa. In 8th place, we have Dangote Sugar. With a massive increase of 18 points from 2023, it brings its brand strength to 80 points, to 80.3. In 7th place, we have Hero Lager, increasing 12 points, seeing its rank improving from 11th last year to 7th this year. In 6th place, BUA Cement, improving nearly 14 points, bringing it from 13th place last year to 6th strongest Nigerian brand in 2024. In 5th place, Goldberg Premium Lager Beer with a score of 81.5 points. Then from 9th place last year to 4th place this year, we have Dangote Cement with a score of 81.5 points. In 3rd place, our biggest brand strength increase of 16 points moves Origin from 17th strongest brand in 2023 to our 3rd strongest brand in 2024. Just 1.3 points ahead of Origin, we have Star Lager in 2nd place. So moving from 8th place last year to 2nd place in this year's results. And in 1st place, the strongest brand in Nigeria for 2024 is Guarantee Trust, GTCO. The brand has improved its rating from 83.4 points in 2023 to 87.6 points. It's 4.5 points stronger than its closest competitor, and it's also the only brand rated AAA in this year's Nigeria table. And so, colleagues, we present to you the top 10 strongest brands in Nigeria for 2024. Now, what's interesting is that 4 of those brands fall within the alcoholic beverage category, followed by 3 banks. The average brand strength score of the top 10 brands this year is 81 points, which is up 6 points from last year. This year's ranking shows that Nigerian brands experienced an overall improvement in brand strength thanks to thorough research and broader coverage of brands. And so while previous assessments of the Nigerian brand strength were more conservative, this deeper understanding now of Nigeria's strongest brand, it truly demonstrates the competitiveness of the top 10. In fact, if we look at the scores between 3rd place to 10th place, there is only a 2.5 point range just demonstrating the competitiveness of these 10 brands. Now, GTCO noted impressive scores across several metrics, including consideration, reputation, and price premium. Particularly, its price premium further highlights the strong position of banking brands in Nigeria and their ability to command higher prices in response to inflationary pressures. And so we just want to say, well done to the top 10 strongest Nigerian brands for 2023. But enough about brand strength. Remember that brand strength is only one component of brand value. The strongest aren't always the most valuable. And so on that note, we are proud to announce the top 10 most valuable Nigerian brands for 2024. In 10th place, the 10th most valuable brand is BUA Cement, with a value of 85 billion naira. So BUA moves from 13th place in 2023 to 10th place in 2024. In 9th place, we have Hero Lager, increasing 97% in value to 86.2 billion naira. In 8th place, we have Origin, doubling in brand value from 52 billion naira in 2023 to 104.4 billion naira in this year's ranking. 7th place, we have First Bank with a value of 108 billion naira, which means that it maintains its 7th place ranking from last year. In 6th place, we have GTCO, Guarantee Trust. So the strongest Nigerian brand for 2024 is ranked the 6th most valuable brand, increasing in brand value by 30% since last year. In 5th place, we have UBA with a value of 215.9 billion naira. So UBA increased by 33% since last year. In 4th place, increasing 25% since 2024, Zenith Bank with a value of 252.4 billion naira. In 3rd place, colleagues, we have Flour Mills Nigeria. The brand has increased in value by a staggering 161%, moving it from 6th place last year to 3rd most valuable brand in 2024. In 2nd place, we have Dangote Cement, which increased in value by an incredible 73% to 324 billion naira. It's the 3rd fastest growing brand for 2024. And in 1st place, retaining its rank for the 3rd consecutive year, is Access Bank. So Access Bank's brand value has increased by 73% from 205 billion naira to 355 billion naira in 2024. The 73% increase in Access Bank's brand value is the result of higher transactional volumes on its digital platforms and its expanding retail network. And this growth just underscores Access Bank's strategic brand positioning and its ability to leverage its brand despite challenging economic conditions. And so to Access Bank, despite a challenging year, you really have risen to the test and performed incredibly well. And congratulations on being the most valuable Nigerian brand for 2024. And so, colleagues, again, our top 10 most valuable brands. So Access Bank, along with other Nigerian banking brands, have demonstrated resilience amid the declining value of the Nigerian naira. Many of these brands, they are providing essential services. They benefit from operations outside of Nigeria, while also effectively implementing price increases without facing negative consequences on their brand strength. And this is, again, it's highlighted by the improved brand strength index scores across the industry and on a national level. Now, banking brands collectively contributed to 50% of the overall brand value of Nigeria's most valuable brands. 5 banking brands are ranked in the top 10 most valuable brands. Out of the top 25 brands featured in the Nigeria 2024 ranking, the most valuable and the strongest brands belong to the banking sector. But there is also one more brand that needs special mention, and that is the fastest growing brand for 2024, and that is Stanbic IBTC. Its brand value has increased by 184% to 75 billion naira in this year's ranking, and that gives it the title of Nigeria's fastest growing brand. And so with a value of 75 billion naira, Stanbic IBTC is ranked 13th most valuable brand for 2024, up 7 places from last year. This massive increase in brand value is attributable to improved profits due to spiked interest income, and a 5-point improvement in brand strength, where we see significant improvements in consideration for the brand overall. And so this really is a remarkable achievement. Well done, Stanbic IBTC. We look forward to measuring your growth in future years. And in fact, well done to all the brands who made the top 25 most valuable brands for Nigeria for 2024. And so, friends, on that note, I'd like to thank you. And what we'll do is we'll hand over to Babatunde now, who will lead the panel discussion and further presentations.
Okay, thank you so much, Ollie, for that presentation, for that eloquent presentation. And thank you, Mark, as well, for that fantastic presentation on trust. Congratulations to Access Bank. You've done a fantastic job once again. I also want to congratulate all the brands in the studies, because you demonstrated such resilience against superior economic odds. So thank you so much and congratulations. At this time of the event, I'd like us to get to the theme of the events, which is basically discussing developing brands beyond local presence. In this, we're going to be talking about whether we need to globalize our brands. And we have some fantastic speakers who are going to be speaking. I'm going to introduce the first speaker. What we'll do actually is we'll get 2 speakers to speak. Then in the Q&A, we will get the representative of Access Bank to come in and join in the Q&A, so to celebrate their success. So the first speaker I'm going to call to do a presentation is Dr. Omotola Elatui. She's a seasoned commercial and strategic planning business leader with significant experience of 20 years in marketing and fast-moving consumer goods. And she does this across the Middle East markets and the East-Western markets. The Middle East market and West African markets as well. She's absolutely one of the great leaders in marketing and global brands. She's marketed quite a lot of global brands here in Africa. Okay, kindly allow me to get the next person, the next gentleman presenter. This is Ifeanyi Okonkwo, who's one of the leading global IP professionals in Nigeria. He's focused on intellectual property, brands, and IP policy. And he has contributed immensely to advising Nigerian and African governments in intellectual property and sustainable development issues. He has also advised quite a lot of large organizations on their IP situations. So I'm presenting to you Ifeanyi Okonkwo.
Thank you very much, Babatunde.
You're welcome.
Just to confirm, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. So I'll just kickstart by saying when we talk about brands, one of the most important tool for understanding and protecting brands is what we call trademarks. And I'm going to speak from a legal perspective. So what is a trademark? Most of us might already know what it is, but perhaps we can offer some insight on other aspects of trademark. But first of all, a trademark generally, for those of us who may not be abreast of what it means, it's a mark that is used or that is proposed to be used in relation to your goods and services, so as to distinguish that mark from other competitors. Just before now, I think Mike or Oliver showed some of the brands in Nigeria, and you can see the Zenith Bank there, and you can see the GTCO logo and the rest of them. So these are trademarks. It can either be a logo, it can be a word mark. It can also be a signature, right? So anything really that can be called a mark that is proposed to be used in relation to the products or services is a trademark. And so a trademark is the legal vehicle upon which brand stands. And that is why it's very critical for brand. Now, as a brand, one thing we must know or consider is, how do we protect our trademarks? And when I say protection, we are talking of, first of all, three things we need to note: the class of protection, the strategy or business model for the protection of your trademark or your brand, and then we are talking about the geographical location or the territory you want to impress your brand. So the first one really has to do with the class of registration. For instance, let me use the banking sector as an example. For a banking sector that produces or that creates services or financial services for the populace, definitely they will be looking at protecting their brand in the class for financial services. And they would also be looking at protecting it with the software technologies, depending on whether it's a product or service. And so you'll be looking at the class for technology and software and applications, which ordinarily in Nigeria, under the NIST classification, you'll be looking at class 9 and 42. You'll also be looking at the financial services sector of class 36. Now, the importance of this classification is that if you protect your brand in one particular class and you fail to protect it in other relevant classes, the implication in law is that some other person can use your brand in those other classes and you cannot do anything to protect your brand. For instance, let's say GTCO or GT Bank Limited has, produced a particular application that is disruptive in the financial space, and then the protection is only in the class of let's say financial services, class 36, and it fails to protect in class 42, for instance. If eventually some other person comes up with the name or a similar confusing name with GTCO in the class of 42, for instance, then there will be a serious struggle to get the other person to back down from using that. So this is why it is important. As a brand, we must think holistically to make sure we protect our brand in all the relevant classes that matter. And of course, your IP experts would always advise you on the classes you need to consider. Now, having said that, it is important as a brand that you keep an eye in the market to prevent brand dilution, especially in this age and time where the digital space has been disrupted by the whole lot of, even in social media, Instagram, there's so many vendors existing. You go to the domain space, there's so many domain. You have a domain.com, and then somebody else is already having the same domain, but .au. How do you protect your brand? This is why it is important to have a serious watch service and create a strategy around the protection of your brand. The strategy usually would be, first of all, you want to make sure you protect your brand in the relevant classes. Then you want to make sure that you create a watch service. Now, this is one of the value adds that comes from having your IP experts look out for you. They will look at the records in most jurisdiction of interest to make sure that there's no other person that is registering or that has registered or that is about to register your trademark. And then you also want to create a market watch service where there are people in the market, and this one would usually apply for FMCG companies. You want to make sure that nobody in the market is, perhaps creating some counterfeit of your products, and perhaps also riding with your name and goodwill. This is something you need to check. And also your brand messaging, the way you use your brand, your trademark. There is a mistake we often make. You see a company having several distortions of the same logo or name. The way it is used today is different from what the graphic designer has presented tomorrow. No, you want to be stable. You want to make sure that that brand is that brand wherever it is seen, wherever it is. There are some instances where you might need to have two brands for maybe some strategic business purposes, but overall, you want to make sure that the brand is that brand wherever and however it is used. And then it is also critical that you look at your location, the territory you wish to conquer. Now, if, for instance, with the African Free Trade Zone Agreement, there is going to be a free movement of goods and services. And one of the fears or concerns is that with that free movement of goods and services would mean some sort of interoperation of brands across different jurisdictions. So for instance, let's say I have XYZ in Nigeria, registered in Nigeria, but I don't have it in Kenya, or I don't have it in Ghana. So what then happens if after takes full effect, and then there's an identical name in Ghana or in Kenya? What would then happen if such person comes into Nigeria to market their service or sell their products? And if I want to go over there, there's now a problem. And this is why it is critical for business to begin to consider their market. What is your market? What are your major interests? Which area? Are you looking at South Africa? Are you looking at the people of Kenya? Are you looking at Zimbabwe? You need to be thinking, I think, Africa, so that you protect your trademark in those territories that matters. And another reason behind this is because in law, trademarks are territorial. So the protection that Nigeria affords you does not extend to Ghana or Kenya or South Africa. No. But through certain platforms or solutions like the Aripo and the OHAPI, these are centralized platforms where you go for registrations and protection, and then automatically all the member states under that platform protect that trademark using that centralized platform. But sadly, not all African countries are under these platforms. For instance, the English-speaking community usually would be under Aripo, but South Africa is not in Aripo, Nigeria is not in Aripo. And so for those countries that are not within those centralized platforms, you want to consider registration or protection separately, individually in those countries. And then you have the Francophone African countries under the centralized system called OHAPI. And this is where also you can go to have that protection. OAP is much more effective and centralized, and it covers almost all the Francophone countries than you have in ARIPO. So these are other strategies you use to extend your brand. For want of time, I'll just finalize by saying that as a brand in Nigeria, beyond the brick and mortar that we do activities, you must also think that or see the fact that your brand on its own is an intangible asset. There is the brick mortar assets, yes, but there is that also intangible asset. When you are expanding to another territory, when you're sitting down discussing mergers and acquisitions, when you're sitting down discussing security, debt, and as well as credit, you should also be looking at the intangible assets. And this is where brand valuation comes in. This is where the legal protection comes in. And I think we'll speak more during the panel section. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ifeanyi. That was a very eloquent presentation. Particularly about the emphasis on the standardization of brands in various footprints where they operate. I think that's a very important point. Well, like you said, we're going to be talking more on the Q&A. So I just want to see if Dr. Elatui is back. Because,
Hello.
hello? Is Dr. Elatui there?
Good morning. Morning, everyone. Yes, please.
Oh, good morning, Doctor. I've introduced you while you're not around, so they know who you are, so we can just get with the presentation.
Yes, I guess we can. So good morning, everyone. And I think for me, I just want to talk about how the country of origin and how we need to develop our Nigerian brands beyond the local presence. You know the saying where they say you don't want to be a champion, a local champion. So how do we make sure that all the brands that we produce in Nigeria can export itself or can speak for itself beyond the country where it is produced? And, a lot of times we talk about how exactly do these brands connote, what do they mean, how do we see them beyond the local space where they operate? So I just basically want to talk about some benefits and the things that we need to do to ensure that our brands can go beyond the shores of our local spaces. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we talk about, I was saying about the country of origin, how important is the country of origin? Because when you go to the market today, oh, I want to buy a UK brand, I want to buy a US brand, a Nigerian brand. How does the Nigerian brand sit within the international space? How does it sit within the regional space? So one of the things we need to ensure is the fact that how is my country, the country where I'm present, my country of operation, how does it even affect me? So I can have a good quality brand. I can have a fantastic brand, packaging can be right, quality can be right, distinctive assets can be just on points, but sometimes the country of origin also affects the footprint of the brand. So a lot of times you're talking about the governance, how does this affect you? The governance of the country itself, the level of investment, who is able to come in and invest, who is able to invest and take their profits out of the country, because at the end of the day, you're looking for investors. We say we're always looking for investors, but when we get these investors, is it easy for these investors to repatriate their funds? And then you talk about exports. How easy are the laws, the regulations, the controls? How easy is it for us to be able to produce something here and export it? Then for tourism purposes, also the culture of the people. How is it adaptable, or is it acceptable worldwide or in other countries? So the nation brand, and thank you everyone for holding on. The nation branding itself is so critical and so important that if your nation itself is not in a great space, it hinders development. So with the emergence of the global trade, you realize that a lot of abundant opportunities might just get lost. You know, you're struggling to get a business, you're struggling to get investors in, but when they look at your country of origin and the identity and what the imagery stands to attract, then you realize that the challenges will always be there. Can we go to the next slide, please? So in essence, what are we saying? That the Nigerian brand itself encompasses a rich cultural heritage. We do have a rich cultural heritage. We are very entrepreneurial. And then, of course, we're also expecting a lot of contributions, and we also contribute to the global cultural landscape. The fashion industry is one, the technological space is one, the financial space is one. You know, at every point in time, the Nigerian business, just like you see that the brands with the strength and top value brands, we all contributing to the global cultural landscape and the entrepreneurial spirit that we have. Can we go to the next slide, please? So when you look at the vision for brands, what really are we saying? What is the ambition of every brand that you see? Is the recognition, the brand name recognition. Anywhere in the world, how does my brand sit? Anywhere in the world, how do I want to be seen? Anywhere in the world, what do I connote to does the consumer recognize me as who I am? How strong is my brand to outlive itself? So if you take example, the KFC brand, we've had other self-service restaurants coming, but when KFC came, everybody wants to be recognized with the KFC effect. And did it change anything? Yes. A lot of people are eager to experience or be associated with that international brand because the brand itself has transcended geographies and cultural boundaries. So anywhere in the world, you want to expect that the recipe will feel the same. If somebody is sitting in the US taking a KFC, how do I feel sitting here taking a KFC? Same with the McDonald's effect. When McDonald's got into China, the experience was the same. People literally queued to get the Big Mac. And we are wondering, what is it about it? It's because of the global brand, and it sits itself wherever it goes to. Can we get to the next slide, please? So if you look at the challenges, what really do we face? The corruption is there. Bribery and corruption is something that is so deep-seated. And then the level of employment, the poor infrastructure. If you look at the poor work ethics, the poor infrastructure, that in itself hinders the growth and development of Nigerian brands going beyond the space. And then, of course, you talk about the level of insecurity. If we're talking about having investors come in, infrastructure is usually just a challenge. You know, the roads, logistics, all of this affect the business environments and of course affect the quality of the goods that we produce. The next slide talks about what then should we work through. If you want your brand, are there opportunities? Definitely yes. Are the issues there? Definitely. But within all of those issues, we've been able to walk through them. And the market research is a very good one. Quality and affordability, and of course the local partnerships. When we look at the research, it enables us to identify the opportunities, the challenges and the opportunity. In the local space itself, what is the Nigerian consumer facing, or what does the Nigerian consumer want? How can I situate my need within the space of this Nigerian consumer? When we look at the conscious, we're very value conscious, right? And of course, we need to offer products at the quality and value to ensure that you have a winning strategy. Because usually your consumer will dictate your price. So you need to ensure that you're giving that quality and affordability within the space of what the Nigerian consumer can afford. Usually when you have international brands come in, the local partnership can be ruled out. They must ensure that to have a unique landscape in Nigeria, you must have credibility and establish partnerships with the local business so that the local nuances are incorporated into the development, building, and culture of the organization and the brands. Next slide, please. So what should success look like? We've talked about the challenges. We've talked about what we can walk through. What would success look like for a local brand? getting into the international space. So first, you have the adaptation, gain the competitive edge, reduce costs. So look at the local things around you, and then the economic impact is the fact that when we have brands seated in Nigeria, producing Nigerian brands, giving the right quality at the right price, we also support the economic impact by increasing the income of Nigerians who live here. You know, increasing the income of Nigeria and overall the entire country. Because when we say, oh, the quality is not good, the logistics is not good, infrastructure is a challenge, the humans are being exported. But when we remain and work with it together, all together we can improve the economic impact. And then the sustainability, because over time there's best practice. The best practices come in place. Then you have the improved quality control, and then you can also retain your distinctive brand elements. So while quality is something that we continuously work on, our distinctive brand elements shouldn't change. Our colors, our logo, our fonts, the look and feel, what we say, how we say, the tone of voice, that shouldn't change, irrespective of where we are. And that's a success factor that can transcend any brand, from a local brand to wherever it's going to be internationally. Then our government policies also need to support, you know, the strict compliance on the policies, and then transforming our online presence. I mean, in today's business and in today's world, if you are not online, you haven't even started. So make sure that we're online so that wherever anybody is, regionally, internationally, they can see you, feel you, talk about you, and then how you are orchestrating all of your elements can also be visible and seen online as well. Now, if we go to the last slide, I'm just going to talk about a few things where we're going to, how we can build a global brand. Yeah, so the first thing is to understand your market. You cannot launch anything, be relevant in any space without understanding the local market that you're in. Your target market will remain the same wherever they are. And why do we say this? What they want, because a cluster of people being segmented will ideally succumb to the same effect. So what do they want? How do they want it? When do they want it? That understanding the target market enables us to be able to appropriately service that target market wherever they are. And of course, we develop a global brand identity. How do you develop a global brand identity? By retaining and sustaining your distinctive brand assets. Those will not change, irrespective of the environment. Your logo will remain the same. Your tone of voice will remain the same. The way, what you're saying to your consumer will remain the same. Your call to action will remain the same. That way, wherever you are, your global identity is retained with your distinctive brand assets, and then localize your brand assets. Now, some brand assets are distinctive, but they can be localized as well, because terminologies might mean different things in different places. So ensure that while the terminologies are interpreted, they still retain the same meaning as intended. And then ensure brand consistency. Ensure brand consistency in terms of look and feel, especially. And then you have to have a digital presence with a multilingual SEO. A lot of times we have digital presence, but we forget that our search engine optimizations work better when there's a multilingual effect to it. So I'm searching for chair today in Lagos. How is chair pronounced? How is chair, how do I interpret chair in another language? Will my consumers will it be easy for them to find me when they search online as well? And then build strategic partnerships and alliances, because you will not have the same weight or effect in your regional space, because your local space is where you're going to have that strategic effect and weight. But when you're building strategic partnerships anywhere else you need to export your business to, you need to build that strategic partnership and alliances. Who fits within the model of business that you operate, and how are their values built to yours and to your brand? So I'm going to stop here so that Babatunde can take on the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much, and thank you for holding on as well.
Thank you, Dr. Olatui. That was sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Olatui. That was a fantastic presentation. one unifying thing between yours and Mr. Ifeanyi's is, and everybody keeps hammering on this, is the fact that we need to standardize a brand. So we'll not waste, because I think time is running against us. We'll go straight to the question and answers, the Q&As. And at this juncture, I want to bring in Miss Tony Henry Ajayi, who's the group head of the group marketing and retail analytics for Access Bank. And once again, Tony, congratulations.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
think
congratulations for the remarkable work you're doing. Before I'm going to put this question out there to everyone of the panel, because we've had some very, very great presentation about why we should build brands globally and the challenges that we're faced with in doing so. Ifeanyi talked about the legal aspects, the IP aspect, which is absolutely crucial, because you'll be surprised the amount of brands. I mean, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, yeah, and when I'm talking to them about their brand or about the IP, they seem lost. When I talk to them about the IP on the brand, they seem lost. So, and I think this session, and I know quite a number of them are on this platform as well. So this session will come in very valuable. So before we actually go to the questions, I think maybe you can tell us a bit about the Access brand story, so that we have an idea what's behind the success. I know you've been instrumental in driving the brand strategy of Access Bank, yourself and your team. But if you can tell us, what the brand story is, we'll be asking the same of our other panels, but we'll start with you first.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can, yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Babatunde, and Mr. Ifeanyi and Dr. Motala. I'm pretty happy to be here with you. We didn't do this overnight. It really isn't overnight. It can't be done overnight. It took years and hard work of people in my team, not in my team, people across operations. I will start by saying, we say we are Africa's gateway to the world. It means if you want to do business in Africa, you come through us. And if you're a business owner in Africa, you come through us to get to the global market. So we say that because today we have footprints across 22 operations, 22 countries, inclusive of China, Hong Kong, Paris, the business hubs. And we're doing that strategically. We have over 60 million customers. We have approximately 28,000 staff working with us across operations. All of these things, again, didn't start in a day, right? We've won several awards in sustainability across environmental, social, and governance, and it isn't done in a day. Again, we've impacted more than 500 lives, invested over 36.7 billion, 6 million hours from our own employees are volunteered. It isn't done in a day. To tell you about our story, it started in 1989. We were just, an obscure, maybe Southwestern bank in Nigeria. And we were 65th position of 89 banks way back. We just had 27 branches nationwide. Over from 1989 to 2001, over that 14 years, we had 27 branches. Now, two young seasoned bankers simply went to Harvard and came back and realized they had more to offer, right? So they bought into the bank. Their names are Aigoji Aigimokwede, then MD, and Herbert Wigwe is DMD. So they joined the bank in 2002. And then we just wanted to be a world-class financial services provider. And how did we say we want to do that? We want to go beyond the ordinary to achieve the perceived impossible in the quest for excellence. And everything we did then was driven by the quest for excellence. So at the time, they focused on seven major things. They call it 7 transformation agenda, right? Because we wanted to be the top 10. Note where we were coming from. Number 65. Everyone will laugh at you. Everyone did laugh at them. But the agenda was basically to assemble a credible and high caliber management team, introduce a culture of excellence founded on professionalism and integrity, ensure human capital development. There was a lot of training. They established the Access Bank School of Banking Excellence, which still exists today, training people like me who's been in this institution for 18 years. They introduced strong procedure and processes to drive day-to-day activities, build a customer-centric organization, design low-cost liability generation strategy, and basically work towards being a world-class financial services provider, positioning as such, creating, redesigning the brand, and all that you spoke to Dr. Mobola, we did it. I lived that. So I get it. Then from 2002 to 2003, we experienced marked growth based on all the changes we did. So we achieved a record 115% growth in balance sheets, paid dividend like never before, delighted investors. There was high brand awareness and acceptance. And we did achieve the top 10 position. So it looked good because we had shown our staff the vision, they bought into it, and we put in the work. So over the period, we came up with, worked with the government, worked with our community, and we grew till 2022 when we became a holding company with different verticals across payments, insurance, loans and advances, banking, and pensions. So how did we do it, right? Every 5 years, we have what we call a cyclical objective. From 2002, when the new management team joined, to 2007, we said we wanted to rank among top 10 bank. We want to be the reference point for service delivery. We want to be top 3 foreign exchange and money market bank, employer of choice, dominant trade, finance and FX bank. We made that promise and we kept it. We achieved it. In 2007, we had another, 2007 to 2012, we had another cyclical objective. We want to become top 5 financial service group. We want to be a leading project and structured finance bank. We want to be a leading e-business support bank. We want to be an employer of choice, top 5 in trade, attain high independent credit rating. That promise was kept. 2013 to 2017, we achieved top 3 position by all financial metrics. We were the reference points for tech. We sustained top credit ratings in the industry, outstanding customer experience across segments, and of course, global brand recognition. It wasn't done in a day, like I said. Then lastly,
Great stuff.
2018.
So go on, sorry.
From 2018, yes, from 2018 to 2022, we became #1 bank in Nigeria. Retail banking and growth wholesale bank, we consolidated on that. We focused on being digitally led. We had global collaboration. We focused on also delighting our customers. We said we want to be the gateway, and we focused on delivering on that. You know, so all of these things was not achieved in a day, right? It wasn't without challenges. It wasn't without challenges.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As we grew in Nigeria, we also had our global expansion, right? Why? Why do we want to be a gateway? If anything should happen today and all the international financial institution pull out, who will be that banker for a Dangote? Who will be there for him in the US? Who will be there for him in Paris? Who will ensure his business is run seamlessly from Nigeria, Pan-African, and global? We want to be that bank, ensuring that we impact lives, impact communities, and economies. And that's what we do in every operation that we go into. So we had regulatory compliance issue, you had to sort that out. Talent acquisition was also a challenge. There is dilution of culture from mergers and acquisitions. We had increasing competition across operation. Then you had to focus on our strategy for growth and managing growth. There's the organic and inorganic choices. There's tech innovation. There's cultural compatibility, buying from local communities, and so on. Of course, our risk management had to be top-notch, and it had to be robust, and that's what we put in place, right? Not to talk about the numbers, I'm sure you've seen that. We had our brand evolution. We had our brand evolution. Right now, for the banking vertical, we moved from being just a financial service provider to saying our vision is to be the world's most respected African bank. That is strong. When you talk of respect, you're not just talking in terms of the brand strength. You're not just talking of the equity. You're not just talking of the assets. You're talking of the reputation. You're talking of sustainability. You're talking of the impact you're making in your local community, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Ghana, Pan-Africa, and the world. So we want to be that bank of reference. Again, we have another cyclical objective, and for our expansion, there was a strategy to that. We're not just going to every country. We wanted to become an aggregator in Africa. We're building global payment gateways. We're offering holistic trade finance support. We're offering correspondent banking support. And that's what I was talking about when I mentioned, being the banker for Dangote in every market, local and international. So we focus on key markets to support these regional trades we're talking about. We're transforming payments and remittances, all the partnership. You've seen us in the news, working with PAPs and so on. We have other organizations collaborating with MasterCard to ensure that, we increase the gateways for people to move their business from the local market to international markets. Of course, diversify risk, and then we build on partnership. We have partnership with financial investors, DFIs, and support growth and protect our value. So our focus continues. Let me just close by saying, we continue to have a disciplined growth over time, digitally transforming our enterprise. We realign for growth through capturing continent-wide opportunities, support the international expansion that we're on. Of course, organic and inorganic growth expansion, capital accumulation and protection over time, despite investments in infrastructure and growth. And we're deliberate on a strategy to ensure diversification of earnings and dilute exposure to soft currencies. We have a strong bench of talent. Our people, we call ourselves access warriors, right? Every access citizen is a warrior. You ask me what we're fighting for. When you stop fighting, you're dead, right? But who are we fighting for aside from ourselves? We're fighting for the people close to us. We're fighting for each other, right? We're fighting to ensure that every colleague leaves us better than they met us. We're fighting for every customer of ours. We're fighting for people who stay close to us. Everywhere we go to, we bring development, we fix roads, we clean markets, right? We go to the hospitals, we take care of those that truly can take care of themselves. We give platforms to people to succeed through, say, promos that we're doing. We've got the Diamond Extra that is rewarding people with cash grants. We have Accesspreneur going to NYSC camps to give these young innovators an opportunity to start. And you have testimonials to back them up. We have Womenpreneur going to every country. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, because the questions are pouring in now, and you actually do have one, Ms. Tony. So, yes. Well, before I take the questions from the participants, perhaps Zoe, if you want to bring back our other panelists so that we can ask these questions and have these discussions.
Yeah, Tunde, happy if you wanted to read them out from the screen. I don't think the other
No. Yeah, okay, fine. I mean, I have a question to ask first. I just wanted to bring the panelists back on with the pictures on, because I only saw Tony's picture here. So, but that's fine. I'm sure they can hear me anyway. So, yeah. Once again, fantastic presentation. Dr. Latui and Ifeanyi, fantastic presentation. More or less saying the same thing in terms of how we could position ourselves in a much more effective way to globalize our brands. The question I want to ask then, after I finish asking this, I'll go straight to the participants' question. At this stage of our economic development, should Nigerian brands be focusing on developing as regional brands, Pan-African brands, or global brands? And that would go to Dr. Latui.
Okay, thank you very much. And you know, the question, should Nigerian brands be local, regional, or international? I would say the opportunities are there, and we shouldn't limit ourselves. You know, the world is our oasis. We should just go in there and, you know, expand as much as we can within the confines of the challenges that we have, knowing that we have the capability to overcome them. But I usually like to start from home. I say, do the right thing here in your local base first. Get the quality right, get the pricing right, get your brand, distinctive brand assets right. Be known for something, you know. When you're inconsistent with your color, your branding, your name, your logo, what you're saying, it's a challenge to even get out there internationally. So put all those things together, put the efforts in, do the work, get all of that in, and then migrate on a regional scale by milestones is what I will say. And one of the things a lot of Nigerian brands are doing very well now is to ensure that at the back of the labeling, most of the labelings you see today have English and French. And why do we do that? Because most of the products are now exported to West Africa. Yeah. So because most of the products are exported to West Africa, they are already positioning themselves to export. They're positioning themselves in such a way that whether the product is in Nigeria, whether the product is in West Africa, there's an opportunity for growth. There's an opportunity to be able to read the label, understand the concept, understand the brand, and that in itself opens up the opportunities. So I would say, should we be positioned as a local brand? Yes. Should we be positioned as a regional brand? Yes. The opportunities are there. I see growth immensely happening there now because a lot of labels today have dual languages on them, which facilitates that export. And then, of course, you can then get internationally because your quality would have been standardized over time. The moment you begin to go through West Africa, you will be of the challenges, the legal regulations, quality control will be standardized over time as you continue to progress, and then eventually you get yourself into the international space. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Dr. Latui. The amazing things that the recurring theme that keeps coming from both the three panelists is about standardization. You know, the quality, the branding, etc. So, and I think what you said earlier kind of speaks to what Mike was talking about earlier when he talked about trust being a driver of consideration. So, yes, I'll ask if you're in the same question, if you're in your thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Tunde. I think I agree with Dr. Motola. Basically, the saying goes, charity begins at home. I think, for instance, if you look at, there are some solutions or services or products that are peculiar to the Lagos environment, right, as a mega city. And if you go to places like Abia, maybe Kwara, and some other, other places, you begin to wonder, why are these solutions, why are these products or services not within this local area? Of course, I've had to ask a friend in FMCG sector before, and what I got was that sometimes some of these products, you look at the earning capacity of the local people, and then you find that it doesn't make business sense to go there. But sometimes I like to push back, and I was like, we need to actually be patriotic, and not just being patriotic, we need to look at the business model in such a way that we are able to also penetrate these other areas. There's always something to offer. There's always something to do. And I think the best way really is to, first of all, conquer the regional aspect, the local, and then the regional, and then you Pan-Africa, really. And in terms of going globally, that may let come in the future. Let's not, for each time we move across one border to another, the rules, the regulation becomes even more tough. And you are looking at a whole lot of resources to be made. So my advice would be, let's begin locally, we'll go regionally and Pan-Africa.
Great stuff. So it's a basic case of charity begins at home, yeah? Okay. The same question, Mr. In your thoughts on the same question, please.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes, I can.
In truth, we should do both, if I hear you right, we should go internationally, right? If we focus on say regional, I know it's easier, right? We can leverage on cultural similarities, geographic proximities to expand our reach. But it's best to go global, right? It's not just about revenues, right? With the dollar rates to Naira going down, if your business is global, you have more opportunity to earn more. But yeah. Yes, so what analysts have said, you need to start from home, say explore regional, and then take it global. But whichever one works for you, but for us, as Africa's gateway to the world, we have to be global. Yeah. We have to put Nigeria on the map. We have to put Africa on the map. We have to be there for African businesses. So for us, it's not even an option. And we're doing that. Again, like I said, we're in 22 countries. It can be easy managing that. We're in France, UK, Dubai, China, Hong Kong, so I would say do work within your capacity, but have a vision that you're working towards, and build it from your region to Africa and to the world. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Sonia. I guess what we should be talking about is really whether the brand should build this outlook of globalizing the brand into the culture, their philosophy, and their strategy. So that maybe at some point, it may not be now, as you all have rightly said, it may not be now, but that orientation is there in the minds of the board of directors, whoever's driving the strategic trust of these businesses, that at some stage we need to go beyond the shores of Africa and get have a strong presence beyond the shore of Africa. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do now is get a question. One question has come in. In fact, two questions, but they're from the same person. Michael Balogun, whom I know very well. Michael is the CEO of Tour of Nigeria, which is a multi-award-winning domestic tourism and tour packaging company in Nigeria. So the question is to the panel, and the second one is to the representative of Access Bank, Ms. Toyin Ajayi. So let me read the first one, and that goes to the panel. My question comes from the negative challenges we face as a country and the red tape bureaucracy hurdles we need to overcome. Take, for example, the recent visits of Prince Harry and Meghan to Nigeria, with a negative backlash from the British media. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, let me put that to the panel anyway. Dr. Motola.
Yes, please.
Because you've talked about the challenges anyway, but maybe you can reiterate that in the answers to this question.
I'm not sure what kind of answer this is expecting, but I'm just going to try. What I know is
I think
yeah.
What is really trying to get at is that I mean, basically what we talked about really, I mean, building a global brand. Okay, I mean, building a local brand has its challenges alone, let alone building a global one. So he's kind of talking about the challenges of doing that, and it's kind of using the visit of Prince Harry and Meghan to Nigeria as some form of illustration, I think.
So I think this will speak to the country of origin itself, which I talked about, building a global brand. Yeah. Because you want to talk about the country where your brand is originating from. And when we talk about Nigeria as a whole, and what brand Nigeria itself stands, what does Nigeria as a brand? How is our branding element or our branding imagery? Let's call it imagery. How is the Nigerian imagery to the external world? And, you know, it made reference to the visits which just happened. People have diverse opinions about these visits. I mean, I've read positive opinions, I've read negative ones, but in all, as Nigeria, as a brand, what did we represent with the visits, the positivity? I think a lot of positivity is overweighing the negativity. But entirely, it's about our identity as a people and to the culture. So I would say the more we are positively, the affinity, the positive affinity we give external people or create for us enables globalization to occur. That's the way I would summarize all of the comments I've read, either positive or negative. So that's the way I would like to summarize it.
Yeah, I think there has to be a policy, to be honest. There has to be a policy on the brand image of Nigeria, because I think the reality is far removed from the perception that's out there about Nigeria. And although we've seen a close in that gap of perception and the reality with the music scene, with the entertainment, with the culture and crafts sector, we've been globalizing the Nigerian culture, but I still think there's a lot that the government needs to get behind, ensuring the image of the Nigerian brand. So that's just my 6 points. So if I
yes, but I was just the topic is a passionate one for me, so I'm just, my body is just jumping. Yeah, so I would say yes, these concerns are real, right? And they are there, and they would perhaps still be there for some years to come, right? But nevertheless, it's important to note that there are companies that are also thriving amidst this whole crisis, right? For instance, even Access Bank, right? I know how well, one of the reasons, in fact, when you're thinking global, one of the regulatory checks is thorough due diligence, even from your own home country. right? If Access Bank hasn't done well in Nigeria, there is no way they would have passed through those regulatory bottlenecks outside Nigeria, for instance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know how well Access Bank tries to, manage themselves, despite all the old bottlenecks in Nigeria, right? Both the team, and so this is saying you guys are really doing well. When I saw Access Bank as one of the brands, I was really impressed. Part of those things we need to know or do as a country is, even as a brand, just like what Dr. Matola mentioned in the beginning, part of the considerations is, as a brand, you must begin to think of your own image, despite the bad image that surrounds us. And that's why companies like Africa No Filter and some other companies, they are now looking at changing the trajectory, changing that story of, let's begin to focus and push those good things about Nigeria, right? And as a brand, you want to look at your corporate social responsibility model and see how you can use your CSR to also build that image. If the image of that company is good, I tell you, when you're going globally, when they start doing their due diligence, they would see that, oh, of course, all the regulators outside, everyone knows that you must treat a particular company or an entity as its own, not the entire nation as a whole. And especially when you're talking of business transactions, right? So the question eventually would be, as a brand, what have you done in your own country or your location to, build or promote your brand in a positive light?
Thanks a lot. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Ms. Tony, do you just want to give a 6 cents, just a quick one to that?
So if I can rephrase the question, based on what everyone is saying, so he's talking about Brand Nigeria and what we
the challenges and the perception.
Yes, and what we think about that just one visit, I think Nigeria is good for a lot of things. Again, where we have that entrepreneurial spirit, everywhere we go, we succeed. We have our unique culture, our creativeness. We have a teeming population of young people ready to take this country to the next level. So that was one incident. It could be positive mentions for some people, think of it positively, like Dr. Mobola said. Then some people had their own negative sentiment about it. In my opinion, every mention is, every PR is PR. I mean, good PR, all right? It doesn't have to be positive. It depends on how we spin the story, right? So if people are talking about you, be happy about it. At the time they were mentioning Nigeria, a lot of other positive mentions were being brought to forth based on that trending hashtags. People were selling their wares. People were tying their own conversations to it. So I think there was nothing lost, right? And again, as Ms. Ayaya has said, you will thrive. You can thrive in the face of challenges. There have been several challenges thrown at us in the country, in the continent, and globally, right? But we're thriving. You can still grow your brand internationally. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. So that's a valuable 6. Is it 6? I don't know how to pronounce. Is it 6 cents or 1 cent? I don't know, but it is a valuable contribution to the discussion. So from the panel as well. So we have 10 more minutes to go. Unfortunately, I mean, geez, I feel this can go on forever in a beautiful way there is. I mean, it looks as if we've only started about 10 minutes ago, but we have 10 minutes to go. So I'm going to throw one last question in to everyone. Often enough, you find that within, and I'm sure each one of the panel have experienced this, you find that there's this polarization between the marketing and finance people. How can I put it? Instead of having this integrated approach where marketing and finance are singing from the same aim sheet in terms of what the brand really represents to the organization. You have this polarized or piecemeal approach where each department is working in silos. So, and what that causes that the finance guy don't understand the value that marketing brings to the table. The marketing people get frustrated. I mean, Dr. Omotola is a chair of the brand advisory for a major capital markets operator in Nigeria. And when I found that, I was absolutely thrilled that, wow, people are beginning to understand the importance of brand on the board level. So, and the kind of culture, this culture that we have is very detrimental to building an effective brand, you know. So the ideal thing would be for the organization to have an to have a integrated approach where, you know, everybody, the brand, what the brand represents is one to everybody, you know, but we don't have that. So the question I'm asking is that, what are you doing, or what have you done, or what can you do to get your non-marketing people to understand marketing in your organization? You know, or what are you doing to bridge that gap between marketing and finance within the organization? So Tony is smiling, so I'm going to go for you first. We have 10 more minutes. I'll just give each one of us maybe 2 minutes so that everybody gets
this is if you ask anyone in the marketing and comms department, they'll tell you this is your everyday nightmare, you know. When you're passionate about the brand, you're preaching it. We have to do this, we have to do that. Yeah. The CFO is looking like, when you're done, you come home. But what we do is, you know, because every CFO just wants to see the brand grow. You can say they're not interested in the future of the brand, right? So what we do is we show them the numbers, right? It's not just about the sizzle, you show them the sausage, right? So you're not just talking, you want to do this, you want to reach, you give them your numbers and show what the impact is. If you've done this in the past on a small scale, and that's what I try to do it on a small scale, see the result, then increase it, show them the result, and then you can show them trends. When I did this, this was the impact. When we did this, when we did not do it, this was the impact. And here are the cost savings we have made. And over time, I realized they get to trust you. So we bring them into the projects. Sometimes we sit with them. In Access, we have these agile teams that can be cross-functional. So you have people from the product sitting, from the marketing sitting, from audit, compliance sitting, legal sitting, and you have, of course, finance. We always carry them everywhere now, like a handbag. You know, they're sitting. So we show
That's
them,
a good strategy,
yeah, we show them the dream, and we let them know we're not being wasteful, because they need to understand that you're thinking like them. Learn their languages, learn the keywords they use, so that they would trust you enough to say, okay, we're good, we're in good hands. That's all. That's just.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's, yeah, basically speaking their language, basically. You know. No, thank you so much. Mr. Ifeanyi, if we have 5 minutes to round up for the event, and so if we can just use 1 minute each.
Okay, that's fine. So I think it's really a major problem, and even sometimes you see in the marketing strategy or activities, the ROI doesn't come immediately, right? So that particular time already, the finance guy is asking you, where is the ROI? Where is the ROI? And you're like, so what Tony even said, sometimes it would maybe be after a year that you then come back and then you begin to educate them. Okay, that thing you're asking me, where is the ROI? Look at the ROI, right? So, but that particular time is so much of a problem then, and you know, they kind of cut costs. It happens in every organization, even in law firms, right? And then the question then becomes, how do you make them see this? I think there's a three-pronged approach to it. You can decide to sensitize and do some practical learning and then participation. So first of all, we try to sensitize them about this. And of course, in sensitization, you have to talk about the intangible assets and then you do the practical learning where they also need to learn some certain things around. Because one of the major problems we have in Nigeria is that the finance guys do not know how to value intangible assets. And I think that's one of the key things brand finance does. And I'm really glad brand finance is making a wave around this. JE too, this is something we offer. So when people begin to understand the aspect of valuing or calculating intangibles, then this whole back and forth is lessened. And then participation. In participation, what you then do is to bring them in, like Tony have said, and through the process, they begin to see it. For instance, a marketing gig that I did 2 months ago, that is why I'm here as a speaker, right? And maybe after here now, who knows, maybe Tony or Motala may decide to call me and say, oh, we want you to do this for us. So this is all part of it.
It is, yeah. Thank you so much, Mifiayi. Dr. Omotala, you work in the board capacity, so I don't know if you want to contribute to this or...
Yes, I'll do that quickly. I'm going to put the icing on the cake because Ifeanyi and Tony have done a really good job. Ifeanyi has talked about the return on investments, which is basically what a finance person is looking at. I'm particularly enthused when Tony spoke about the fact that it's not just about the show. Talk to them and let them see the impact, which is what measurement and evaluation does. And then she was saying, carry the finance person along. If they do not understand the evaluation, they can value it. So carry them along and make sure that they understand from the beginning. Then your thought flow together is aligned from the beginning. They then say the value. She also talked about the impact. If they don't see the impact, it's very difficult to marry the finance bits to the value.
That's absolutely,
so just going to end with quickly is strong brands are made because they become the most valuable assets of the company. We must support it to make strong brands. And this is what we're sitting about. We sat here today. Congratulations to Access Bank about winning the most valuable brand. They are made. They didn't just get there overnight. It took us through that journey.
Sure.
So brands are made and become the most valuable assets. And now branding dictates the strategic investment decisions that organizations are making. The stronger your
brand. Thank you so much, Doctor, because I have 1 more minute to thank everybody.
Thank you.
So I'm so sorry. In fact, next time we do this, it has to be 3 hours, honestly. And I'll be speaking to Zoe and the guys. So I want to thank you so much, the panel. This has been an exciting session. And I want to thank the participants and also the brands that did incredibly well given the economic situation we're in. I want to thank you so much. And I seriously hoping we do this again next year. Maybe longer because this was enjoyable. I was really enjoying this. It's an abrupt ending to what we're enjoying. So thank you so much. Tony, Ifeanyi, and Dr. Elatui. Thank you. I greatly appreciate your presence and your contribution. And the participants, thank you. And the brands that did incredibly well in the studies. Thank you. And we'll see you guys next year.
Thanks very much, Tunde. I'll just wrap up very, very quickly. So thank you so much to all of our speakers today, and thank you for all of our participants for joining as well. Great webinar, very interesting discussion. And if you would like to continue the discussion, please do get in touch with Tunde directly as well. I'm sure he'll be happy to discuss any more questions and involve the other panelists as well. Just a note and reminder, the webinar was recorded today and all our event recordings are available on our Brand Finance YouTube channel, and it will be circulated to all our registered delegates next week. If you want any further information on the topic discussed today or our future events, please email events@brandfinance.com. But once again, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And we look forward to reconnecting with you all again soon. Have a lovely weekend.